What's going on, guys? Austin Zay back here with another YouTube video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the stimulus check updates. And I know I've made several other videos talking about it, but we're going to dive deep into the different updates today, answer all of your questions, and literally talk about the stimulus check proposal that has the highest likelihood of actually getting passed, the timelines, and everything you need to know. On April 22nd, Bank of America actually predicted in a research note that Congress would pass another large stimulus worth up to $1.5 trillion. That extends on provisions in the Phase 3 package and provides aid to state and local governments. A couple of other banks actually have predicted this as well. CNBC also did a survey on April 28th predicting another stimulus from the federal government of up to $2 trillion. So there's actually been a lot of talk about the second round of stimulus, and we're going to dive deep into that in today's video. Make sure you stay till the very end. I've gotten thousands of comments from you asking all sorts of different questions over the last week. I never thought in a million years that I would ever get that many comments on my YouTube channel. So I really appreciate it, and I want to make sure to answer as many of those questions as I possibly can today, because again, today is Sunday, and I just figured I'd make one nice long video just doing my very best to answer all of the questions, summarize all of the proposals, and talk about my favorite proposal at the end of the video, which I do believe actually has a fairly high likelihood of getting passed. Also, when times are normal, I talk about the stock market, real estate, credit cards, basic personal finance skills, how to save money, how to invest your money, and I really think that that would be beneficial for you if you definitely went ahead and subscribed and smashed the like button, even when all of the stimulus stuff goes back to normal, which who knows when that'll happen, but we're gonna dive into it in today's video. Let's just go ahead and start off by actually going through the different proposals that we've seen so far, and that way we're just all caught up. We know exactly what is going on, and then we're gonna talk about which one is actually the most likely to get passed, and also we're gonna talk about a couple of timelines and actually look at when they could potentially get voted on and actually passed. So let's just go ahead and talk about the very first stimulus proposal here, and that is the one that got passed, okay? And there was a lot that went into the initial CARES Act, and I'm not gonna get too much into it, but essentially it was the $1,200 check that hopefully everybody has received by now, but I do know, based on all the comments that I've been getting, there's actually a lot of people that have not received their check yet. So hopefully you get the first check very soon, as I know a lot of people really need the money right now. And I do read every single one of your comments. Even if I don't reply, I read every single one. And I do try to reply to as many as I possibly can. But we're going to dive into this here a little bit. The CARES Act round one had funding essentially going all sorts of different places. Now, there was a lot of problems with it, just due to the fact that nobody could get their checks. I mean, there are literally like tons of problems, right? Super chaotic. Getting a status update was near impossible. I mean, you had a higher likelihood of getting struck by lightning, okay? Probably not actually getting struck by lightning, but getting a status update was near impossible. Getting a hold of anybody, calling a number was basically impossible. Dead people were getting paid and alive people were not getting paid. I mean, there was just a ton of problems with the initial CARES Act, but it was a $2.2 trillion bill that got passed, right? So hopefully, if another bill were to get passed, there wouldn't be nearly the problems that we saw in the first one, okay? Let's go ahead and dive into it really quick. The first proposal that we're looking at right now, and you probably heard of it, is called the Emergency Money for the People Act. And we looked at this probably a week or two, maybe 3 weeks ago. And it was actually introduced by Representatives Ro Khanna and Tim Ryan, okay? And it was a $2,000 a month stimulus check, $4,000 if you were married. And there was a lot that went into this, right? And we looked at this, like I said, a few weeks ago, but I'm just going to just really quickly run through it, okay, so we can have a general understanding. But essentially, you get $2,000 a month or $4,000 if you were married. You had to make less than $130,000 if you were single, and less than $260,000 if you were a couple. Those who were claimed as a dependent on another person's individual tax return would also be eligible to receive that stimulus payment on a monthly basis, which again, the CARES Act actually prohibited stimulus payments to anybody who could be claimed as a dependent on another person's tax return. So the eligibility, right, the requirements to qualify for this particular proposal are not nearly as intense as they were for the CARES Act. And the Emergency Money for the People Act would also allow an additional $500 per child for up to a maximum of 3 children. You had to be 16 years or older to qualify. Look, at the end of the day, the qualifications were a lot looser than they were for the initial CARES Act. And finally, the Emergency Money for the People Act would allow you to get paid via different payment applications like Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, and a lot of other things that you can get paid through that I know in the initial CARES Act was one of the big problems, right? If you didn't have an actual mailing address, you didn't have a bank account, it was very, very difficult to get paid, if not near impossible. And in this bill, they were trying to solve some of those problems. Another proposal that we've been talking about is the Free Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act. And this one was introduced by Representative, and I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, Ilhan Omar, okay? And it would cancel rent or mortgage payments for an individual's primary residence for up to a year. This bill, you would not be allowed to get free rent or mortgage on like a second or third residence. So if you're super wealthy and you have a cabin in Aspen, Colorado, this would not apply to you, but it would give you full rent payment or mortgage payment forgiveness on your primary residence for up to a year, and no debt accumulation for renters or homeowners, and no negative marks on your credit history. And that really is that bill in a nutshell. If you're curious on that bill, what would happen to the landlords, I will link all this in the description down below because it is a little bit more nasty of a bill when you look at what the landlords have to sign up for in order to be eligible on their side of things. But I'm just going to assume that for the purpose of today's video, we're not going to talk about the landlord stuff. I want to kind of dive in to the meat and potatoes of the video and talk about the proposal that has the highest likelihood of actually getting passed, which we're going to do here in just a minute. So if you haven't already, again, I would really appreciate it if you would click that like button, okay? It really does help me out. And I want to make sure that we create a family here of people. My goal really is to educate, to inform you, and to help you. Really just to give you any updates, tips, tricks, or advice that I possibly can, even when there isn't craziness going on in the world, okay? So another bill is the Getting America Back to Work Act. And essentially this one was proposed by Senator Josh Hawley, and it would create a refundable payroll tax rebate that would cover up to 80% employer payroll costs, okay, up to the median wage. It would also establish a rehiring bonus for employees who were laid off and later rehired. So this one isn't an actual stimulus check. It doesn't just go into your pocket. It would allow employees to remain on payroll and be eligible for continued employee benefits, reducing the downtime companies need to restart their operations once the economy starts moving again. So that is another bill that we've been talking about lately, but let's go ahead and dive into the most recent bill and one of the bills that I'm a little bit more excited about looking into, and that is the bill called the Monthly Economic Crisis Support Act. And I did make another video on this, as I know other people have made videos on it also, but if you stay to the end of the video, I definitely want to share a couple of my additional thoughts with you, and also a few newer updates that I actually have today, Sunday, that I didn't have yesterday or even Friday. So just going through it one more time really quick, Senator Kamala Harris, along with Senators Bernie Sanders and Ed Markey, proposed this bill. It is very similar to the Emergency Money for the People Act, which we talked about a while ago, and it's kind of been floating around for a while, in the sense that you would receive $2,000 a month or $4,000 if you were married. This one would actually allow you to receive an additional $2,000 per month for each qualified dependent, up to a maximum of 3 dependents. So that is a really interesting thing when we look at this bill, okay? And again, I'm just gonna run through the eligibility really quick, and then we're gonna kind of dive into what I actually think. And that is essentially everybody would be eligible other than the following, and that is any non-resident alien individual, any individual who can be claimed as a dependent, and an estate or a trust. And again, eligibility is also based on income, but the income requirements or the income eligibility standards or set points are very similar to what we saw in the Emergency Money for the People Act, and that is basically $100,000 or $200,000 in the case of a joint return, $150,000 in the case of a head of household, $100,000 in the case of a taxpayer not described in subparagraph A or B, which I'm going to show you on the screen. And payments would be made via direct deposit with this bill. Payments would be made via direct deposit with this particular bill, assuming the IRS has your information on file. The proposal also calls for the payments to be made through other means as determined by the Secretary of Treasury, including through the use of stored valued cards and online payment systems. So this could end up looking very similar to the Emergency Money for the People Act, where you would actually be eligible to get paid through like PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, or one of those other payment methods. I know that in the initial CARES Act, there was actually a lot of problems with people getting paid and then the bank actually taking the money due to garnishments. People who were getting their wages garnished, they were actually taking that money. So that actually caused a big problem in the initial CARES Act, which hopefully they would alleviate in a future bill. The stimulus would be retroactive, which is pretty crazy, okay? And that means that it would go back to March of 2020, and it would end 3 months after the end of the emergency, right? The COVID-19 emergency, as declared though, specifically by the Secretary of Health and Human Services. So not when the lift comes off of, actually being able to go outside and do stuff, okay? So it's an actual health issue, not an economy reopening issue, okay? Let me kind of look at this bill. If you're getting your wages garnished or anything like that, this wouldn't affect that. So you would still be eligible to receive your funds, and that is really interesting. Now, this bill, in my opinion, is the highest likelihood of getting passed for multiple different reasons, and the Republicans want to reopen the economy. The Democrats want to give more money away, right? So that is kind of what we're looking at here. And in a nutshell, there's so many interesting things going on right now. I know that I've actually read a lot of articles talking about business owners actually struggling to get their employees to come back to work because they're making more money potentially on unemployment than they were making when they were employed. So, I mean, again, that is unemployment fraud, right? But it is a struggle for employers to actually get employees back to work right now, which is really, really crazy. Also, I know Facebook and other big tech platforms have actually told employees that they can stay home till the beginning of next year, right? 2021, January of 2021, and that is official. I know Amazon, I believe, was saying October. It's just pretty crazy when you look at everything that is going on right now. Another question I've been getting asked a lot lately is how long would it actually take for another bill to pass? And I started looking into why the CARES Act actually got passed so quickly. And there's a really interesting article here that I'm going to go ahead and pull up and share with you. And again, a lot of what I'm reading, I'm paraphrasing, I'm reading for other articles, I'm taking from other articles because I'm just taking everything that I can learn and put it into an easy to understand way and then share it with you, give you my thoughts and my opinions. So obviously, I want to give everybody credit for writing all the articles and getting all this information out into the hands of the public. But when we're looking at this actual story here, what's really interesting is the reason that the CARES Act was able to get passed so quickly is the shell of the bill actually came from another bill that was created in 2019 called the Middle Class Health Benefits Tax Repeal Act. And there was a lot of speculation actually, apparently, I didn't even know this, that the CARES Act, which was designed for COVID-19, which wasn't a thing until March, was around since last year or January, which again would be a problem because the conspiracy theory would have been that people knew about it in advance. But this article actually says the opposite of that. So it actually says that was not the case, and what actually happened was that it was another bill that was going to be used for something else that they took and they used for the COVID-19 crisis, and they just rewrote everything, right? And that is what they're talking about over here, which I don't understand exactly how all of that works, but what I will say is if you already had a bill that the shell of it was there, right? Maybe some terminology or some of the different things that are needed to have in a bill were already there, and all you had to do is restructure it, add in all of the meat and potatoes or what have you, then that could have shortened the timeline in which it would normally take to create a bill like that, which was why we saw the CARES Act get passed as quickly as it did. And those are just my thoughts. I don't know for sure. I just did a bunch of research. So to answer the question of when or how long would this one take to get passed, I mean, nobody knows. What I will say here, though, is that it is looking like they're actually going to get the House members back to vote on May 14th for the next stimulus bill that they're calling right now CARES 2. Okay, and again, that was according to a tweet made by Chad. And again, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but Pergram. I mean, if they get in there to vote May 14th, that's this upcoming week, we'll have to see what happens, right? We'll have to see how long it will actually take. But from everything that I'm reading right now, I'm actually seeing that there is a high probability that we will see another round of stimulus. Now, I don't know exactly what it'll look and feel like. I don't know what bill it will be. If it'll be free rent and mortgage cancellation, if it'll be $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month. There was even a bill that was $2,000 a quarter. You know, I don't know what bill it'll be, but what I will say is the more and more and more research that I do, the more articles that I read, the more things that I look into, the more I'm seeing personally that there's a pretty high likelihood that we will see more money in the hands of American people. I don't know when exactly. I do know based on that tweet that House members are going to go vote on May 14th. I will say this will be a big week. Today is Sunday, May 10th. May 14th would be Thursday. I think this will be a big week in terms of news and updates. And my goal is to keep you updated. I'm also going to try to make some other basic videos on how to save money, how to actually make money right now, and several other related topics that would be beneficial for everybody in times like this. My goal is to continue to make as much content as I possibly can, but for all of you dropping into the comments section below that there's not going to be another stimulus and that, you know, America's bad and all of these crazy things, look, here's all I'm going to say. I'm neutral. I will say this. I am a normal average guy. I wasn't born into money. I didn't have a bunch of money growing up. I'm a normal average guy. And being positive and having a positive outlook on life is the reason that I am where I am. Be positive. Don't be a pessimist. Be an optimist, right? And we will see what happens. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, I would really appreciate it if you'd smash the like button. And I look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's video.